Is there any evidence of the multi-personal God known as the Trinity in the Old Testament? Was this concept of God made up by early Christians, or can we see this teaching of a multi-personal God existing in the Old Testament long before the rise of Christianity? Many Unitarians say no, that the Trinity was made up by early Christians, and there is no evidence of it in the Old Testament, and no evidence that early Jews believed in anything but a Unitarian God. They often point to Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Unitarians say this verse clearly refutes the idea of any plurality within the Godhead and shows God's nature is Unitarian. But is this how the verse was meant to be interpreted, with the surrounding context and with the unique words used in the verse? Many Christian scholars say no, and provide ample evidence as to why. First, Deuteronomy 6:4 is a very short statement, and the surrounding context doesn't give any more clarification to imply the verse is definitely talking about the internal nature of God. In fact, the opposite is true. The surrounding context implies the verse is intended to contrast the Lord to the possibility of other gods existing with him, such as pagan grouping of gods, in which three individual gods are in close related association with one another. A few verses down in verse 13 and 14, we read, "You shall fear the Lord your God and serve him, and shall take oaths in his name. You shall not go after other gods, the gods of the peoples who are all around you." So the context implies verse 4 is saying the Lord is one being, in contrast to early pagan grouping of gods. Second, the words used in Deuteronomy 6:4 do not prohibit the idea of a multi-personal God. The word used for one is akkad. Now akkad does simply mean one, but it doesn't absolutely mean solitary or entirely singular. Messianic scholar Dr. Michael Brown says, actually, akkad simply means one, exactly like our English word one. While it can refer to compound unity, just as our English word can, as in one team, one couple, it does not specifically refer to compound unity. On the other hand, akkad certainly does not refer to the concept of absolute unity, an idea expressed most clearly in the 12th century by Moses Maimonides, who asserted that the Jewish people must believe that God is Yachid, as only one. There is no doubt that this reaction was due to exaggerated unbiblical Christian beliefs that gave Jews the impression that Christians worship three gods. Unfortunately, the view of Maimonides is reactionary, and also goes beyond what is stated in Scripture. In fact, there is not a single verse anywhere in the Bible that clearly or directly states that God is in absolute unity. Akkad is used in Genesis 2:24 to say a man and his wife shall become one flesh. So akkad is used to say two are together one. Genesis 11:6 says, "The people are one, and they all have one language." Obviously the people are all individuals, but the word akkad is being used to show they are working together as one. So since akkad can be used to describe multiple things as one, why does akkad in Deuteronomy 6:4 have to mean God is a Unitarian being? Also, the verse uses a word for God that ends in a plural possessive pronoun suffix. Other words ending this way can be seen in Numbers 20:15, Isaiah 53:5, and 1 Samuel 12:19. This shows the word used for God is plural and not singular. So since a plural name is used for God, many Christians argue this verse can easily be translated like this, which shows us that once we understand the original meaning of the words used, we can see that the verse does not favor Unitarianism. Many other examples of plural names and pronouns are used throughout the Bible when speaking about God. However, I agree with skeptics that this evidence alone is not enough to show a multi-personal God in the Old Testament. It is good evidence, but it isn't sufficient on its own, since there are other good alternative explanations as to why plural names and pronouns are used for God, which is why I point to the evidence of the three divine persons in the Old Testament.